Shadow Hack. Chapter 111, Crystal Armor which only a king dares to congeal. The second level was much larger than the first level. Li Yunmu noticed after being transferred to this place that the walls around him were still covered with 99 exit passages. Of these 99 tower doors, 19 were activated. Next instant, 19 dark claw hell rats rushed out. Seeing this, Li Yunmu sneered. Li Yun and Li Feng attacked them following their previous strategy. After several minutes, he obtained 2 tower badges, bringing his total to 3. But the sacred shadow female's virgin blood was still far away in the indefinite future. However, it didn't matter. Weren't there many levels still left? The third level. The third level had 29 dark claw hell rats. At this moment, even Li Yunmu couldn't afford to keep watching. Of the 29 dark claw hell rats pouncing towards him, the 2 shadows only managed to obstruct 23. There were still 6 left that rushed towards him. At this moment, Li Yunmu was armed to the teeth. In his hand was the Snow Guzzle Cold Blade, a B-grade weapon. Since he was within the Tower of Glory, there wasn't any need for him to hide his strength. The awesome rainbow light of the king-grade crystal armor was displayed to its pinnacle after the armor was activated. To anyone watching Li Yunmu from a distance, he would appear to be a boss monster, a king-grade dimensional beast wearing a king-grade crystal armor on his body. The multicolored rainbow lights were extremely dazzling to the eyes. As for the difference between the king-grade crystal armor condensed from the flux crystal dropped by a king-grade monster and an ordinary crystal flux armor, the difference was huge. Firstly, if Li Yunmu wasn't deliberately trying to conceal the rainbow light, then the percentage of heads turning because of this king's crystal armor would be 100%. However, Li Yunmu clearly didn't want that, as he had always deliberately concealed the king-grade crystal armor's rainbow light and only revealed the black light displayed by ordinary crystal armor. Thus, even the spies of the Fluxer Guild and Chu Qingyi weren't able to discover that Li Yunmu had adorned the king's crystal armor. The second difference was that the defensive strength of this king's crystal armor was many times greater than that of the ordinary crystal flux armor. He had calculated carefully that the defensive strength of this king's crystal armor was 3 times stronger than the ordinary crystal flux armors of the same layer cultivators. The third difference was that the king-grade crystal armor could be developed to condense 12 rainbow lights altogether. However, the crystal armor congealed by other flux crystals didn't have this development potential. For each rainbow light congealed by the king's crystal armor, the rainbow light protecting the body would be strengthened to the next level. At the same time, the strength of his flux energy would also be greatly improved with the integration of this rainbow light's energy with his flux energy. For every rainbow light congealed, regardless of whether it was the body protecting rainbow light or the offensive strength of his flux energy, all of them would gain a significant increase. This was why the king-dimensional monsters were considered formidable, to the extent that they could change the battle situation by themselves. The main reason behind the last statement was that the king-grade dimensional monsters possessed 12 rainbow lights. At that time, Li Yunmu had the assistance of the whirlwind effect of the wind god tornado kick that firmly ground him to death. But if there had been 8 or 10 rainbow crystal fluxers in his place, they wouldn't be able to kill the opponent just by joining hands. Even if they were able to kill it, more than half of the 10 rainbow crystals fluxers would have lost their lives. This wasn't even considered a large price to pay for killing a king-dimensional beast. Thus, those human fluxers who wanted to congeal a crystal armor with many rainbow lights only had one choice. That was to use the flux energy from the king's flux crystal to congeal their armor right from the start instead of congealing armor like the other ordinary fluxers. The higher the number of rainbow lights produced by the king's crystal armor, the more terrifying your combat strength would be compared to fluxers of the same layer. Naturally, there weren't many people in the world who were determined to use the king's flux crystal to congeal armor. Even a person like Ling Shuang, who had countless cultivation resources available to her, didn't dare to do so. There was no why. It was just because these kinds of king-grade crystal armors required to be continuously strengthened. The total number of King's flux crystals required during this process was enormous, to the extent that not even Ling Shuang, who was a disciple of Battle Sage, dared to have any ambition towards this. Only ruthless people like Li Yunmu, who had the shadow hack system, could have the enormous determination to break the cauldron and sink the boats one. It wouldn't be the slightest exaggeration to say that after comprehensively surveying all the newcomer fluxers in the 6 continents, those with such determination and confidence could be counted on 2 hands. Even if there were some, the background of these people had reached such an extent that they could cover the heavens just by extending their hands. Without the support of such an enormous background, even if one was a pinnacle-grade talent, he wouldn't dare to be so extravagant. Naturally, the present king's crystal armor that Li Yunmu congealed hadn't got any rainbow light. He couldn't be extravagant enough to provide the king-grade flux crystals required to congeal a rainbow light. Currently, the king-grade crystal armor he had could only be used to scare people. The difference between a king's crystal armor which had congealed body-protecting rainbow light and a king's crystal armor which hadn't congealed body-protecting rainbow light was extremely huge. However, as long as he continues to acquire more king's flux crystal in the future, then his future strength would be absolutely terrifying, like a king-dimensional monster. His name could even correspond to a human-type boss. However, it doesn't matter if he hadn't congealed any rainbow light. Now, even just his king's crystal armor far surpassed the defensive power of other crystal armors. This could already be said to provide a gargantuan benefit to Li Yunmu. After congealing the king's crystal armor, Li Yunmu naturally didn't use the battle soldier equipment. His defense could still be said to be composed of 3 layers. No, it could even be said to be composed of 4 layers. The first was the Admiralty cover, which reduced damage taken, followed by the strength resistance provided by the king's crystal armor. Furthermore, after being cultivated to the 10th layer, the iron body could also endure the majority of the remaining damage. Finally, even if this 3-layered defense wasn't enough, then he found it embarrassing to say, but he still had the final layer of defense, the heavenly world, which could absorb the remaining amount of damage. Using the heavenly world to absorb the remaining amount of damage which passed through the 3 layers. This was the terrifying defensive power of 4-layered defense combined into one. The best word which could describe him without overstating would simply be a tank. This time, at the Tower of Glory, it was his first time revealing his 4-layered defense. Presently, he himself didn't have any precise idea about what level his defense had reached after he had congealed the king's crystal armor. When the 6 dark claw hell rats pounced on him, Li Yunmu didn't move his and continued to firmly endure. That's right, he had only taken one action, to firmly endure. Within a split second, the extremely sharp dark claws, which could tear through iron like it was paper, ferociously attacked Li Yunmu's body. 48% of the total damage was immediately reduced by the Admiralty cover. The remaining damage from the repeated claws now confronted the king's crystal armor. Instantly, the sharp claws of the hell rat heavily scraped against the king's crystal armor, issuing an ear-piercing screech. However, under careful observation, Li Yunmu discovered that the opponent's simply claws couldn't penetrate the 1 centimeter thick crystal armor. Not only that, they couldn't even put a scratch on it. The slight scratch marks produced by the claw slash were instantly mended by flux energy inside the king's crystal armor, restoring it to its perfect condition. Formidable to the point of being unimaginable. Li Yunmu laughed cheerfully. The reason why it wasn't an exaggeration to say that the crystal armor congealed by a fluxer formed the majority of his combat strength was that just by the relying on crystal armor, his defense could easily surpass the so-called silver base equipment. Furthermore, the defensive strength of the king's crystal armor was 3 times that of an ordinary crystal armor. From this, it could be clearly seen how tanky Li Yunmu was. Naturally, all this wasn't unrelated to the godly defensive skill, Admiralty cover. Without the formidable damage reduction property of Admiralty cover, the effectiveness of all types of defensive equipment would naturally suffer a huge drop. Presently, facing the 4-layer defense system, the Hell Rats, which were known for its sharpness, couldn't even penetrate the second layer. This time, Li Yunmu finally obtained a clear understanding of his defense. Interesting, my defense is extremely powerful. I just don't know what effect this king's crystal armor has on my flux energy's strength. Li Yunmu remained motionless and allowed the 6 hell rats to attack. However, these brutes didn't move. In the next instant, Li Yunmu grasped his snow guzzle cold blade and lightly chopped towards a hell rat some distance from him. Pang! An extremely bright blade energy, whose sharpness reached the pinnacle, instantly came out of the blade and immediately chopped the body of the hell rat into 2. Aurora killing justice. Furthermore, he hadn't used the full power of Aurora killing justice. Rather, the Aurora killing justice which he had blended into the swiftly flowing overkill technique. This extremely sharp blade energy was only as big as a palm and had the shape of a crescent moon. However, this blade energy was enough to easily chop a hell rat, whose strength surpassed grade 10, into 2 parts. As for the flux energy used by Li Yunmu, it was simply negligible. Chapter 112, Blown Away. The level of coordination with the weapon saves energy. This was an even more outstanding ability of the king's crystal armor. Li Yunmu made a rough estimation. After adorning the king's crystal armor, he saved roughly 50% flux energy when using small-scale Aurora killing justice. While with a first layer ordinary crystal flux armor, his energy saving based on the level of coordination would only be 10%. The former saved 5 times more energy compared to latter. If another 10% coordination degree of snow guzzle blade was also added, the total energy saved would reach 60%. In other words, if he originally needed 10-point flux energy to use the small-scale Aurora killing justice, then presently he only required 4-point flux energy to do the same. This difference was huge. Apart from this energy savings, not only did the power of the flux blade energy increase due to the use of the king's crystal armor, but the blade energy also became even more condensed and compact. For this basic reason, the small-scale Aurora killing justice was able to easily penetrate through the extremely tough body of the hell rat dimensional beast. After experimenting once, Li Yunmu felt that his decision to use the king's flux crystal to congeal crystal armor was absolutely correct. Although it would require an astronomical amount of resources to continuously strengthen the crystal armor, but he would become more powerful than others if he could upgrade the king's crystal armor to its pinnacle. Then there would be nothing wrong with paying that price. If you want to reap rewards, then you must invest first. This was an extremely simple logic. Soon, the 29 hell rats, by whom even a black crystal fluxer would be torn to pieces, were completely ineffective against him and couldn't even penetrate his defense. Li Yunmu wasn't the only one whose armor was impenetrable. Even the defense of Li Yun and Li Feng, whose strength was synchronized with main body, was also unbreakable. Seeing this, Li Yunmu concluded that even if this type of monster increase in numbers, still the lower levels of the towers would be very simple to clear. The ease of clearing the lower levels was simply because his body's defense could be said to be absolute in those levels. Regardless of how many monsters there were, regardless of how their numbers increased with each level, all of those monsters wouldn't have any effect on him. Killing the 29 hell rats took him 5 minutes. After 5 minutes, Li Yunmu again obtained 380 experience and ability points. 4th level. As he expected, there was no change in the type of dimensional beasts arranged by the Tower of Glory 39 hell rats. But it didn't matter, these hell rats were unable to get past the second layer of Li Yunmu's defense, so he didn't have the least bit of problem and directly killed them all without moving from his position. Li Yunmu again obtained 500 ability and experience points at that location. It had to be said, as he got to the higher levels, although the Dark Claw Hell Rat didn't transform, and regardless of the strength grade of a single entity, their numbers continued to increase. Meanwhile, Li Yunmu's harvest of ability and experience points also continued to climb higher. 5th level. But the 49 hell rats that appeared on this level had increased strength that was 3 times that of the 12th grade monsters on 1st level to the 15th grade on this level. But there was finally a transformation on the 5th level which caught Li Yunmu's attention. Because the number of the hell rats wasn't 49 but 50. The one extra hell rat had the huge size of a bull, and his body kept emitting a bloodthirsty and powerful presence. F***C.K, I thought the pattern was that just the numbers would increase, then what is this increase in difficulty? Seeing the huge hell rat, a hint of seriousness finally appeared on Li Yunmu's expression. Dark Claw Hell Rat Battle General was a hell rat who had evolved to the next stage. Its strength was at the silver crystal layer, and it was extremely fierce and cunning and had an extremely fast speed. The pair of dark claws could easily tear a silver crystal fluxer's crystal armor. Li Yunmu had learned this information relevant to the Hell Rat Battle General from the Book of Monsters given by Lunuja. It wouldn't be the slightest exaggeration to say that this Hell Rat Battle General was tough enough to make a silver crystal fluxer bite dust. It's no wonder that the majority of the silver crystal fluxers were repelled here and couldn't advance forwards. Who knew how many silver crystal fluxers had fallen here in the history of this tower? But this didn't mean that Li Yunmu also would be stopped from advancing by this big guy on this level. It was only a silver crystal layer dimensional beast, and that was all it was. Go! Next instant, Li Yun and Li Feng again launched a charged assault and directly rushed forward. However, Li Yunmu, who was still standing at his original location, hung Snow Guzzle Cold Blade behind his back. Gripped by his 5 fingers, the Underworld Raven Battle Bow finally made an appearance. Heavenly Dog engulfs Moon. Without any warning, Li Yunmu directly used the deadly bow skill against the Hell Rat Battle General. If he hadn't had any coordination level with Snow Guzzle Cold Blade and King's Crystal Armor, then presently, with his ordinary crystal layer cultivation, he could only use the deadly bow skill, Heavenly Dog engulf Moon, no more than 3 times. With that usage limitation, he wouldn't have used it so casually, but presently his flux energy was enough for 7 uses, which were more than sufficient. Instantly, a 10-meter-long black dog, with a black cloud coiled around it, pounced on the Hell Rat Battle General. That dog excluded an even more ferocious aura than the Hell Rat Battle General. A trifling silver crystal layer dimensional beast wishing to resist the intimidating effect of the Heavenly Dog engulf Moons was akin to an imbecile indulging in his pipe dreams. Instantly, before the Heavenly Dog had reached the target, its howl made the Hell Rat sink into a daze as was expected. Following which, this majestic Hell Rat Battle General main boss was directly swallowed by the Heavenly Dog and the majority of its vitality was absorbed. Explode! Li Yunmu didn't choose to restore his flux energy first, but rather commanded the Heavenly Dog to explode. Bang! A huge bang, like a ton of explosives going off, echoed, and a pile of flesh and blood scattered everywhere. The powerful and bloodthirsty Hell Rat Battle General had been blown to smithereens by the explosion. Even the dozens of Hell Rats within the 10-meter radius of the point of the explosion were also caught up and annihilated. This was the power of a B-grade skill of an extraordinary nature. Since this bow skill had the label of a deadly skill, then naturally it had the explosive power required to kill opponents in one shot. This was why a fluxer, who had obtained a deadly B-grade skill of an extraordinary nature, would be counted as an elite among those of the same level. This Hell Rat Battle General didn't have any opportunity to do damage before it was insta-killed by Li Yunmu. Even still, the attack wasn't over yet. Since the Underworld Raven Destruction Sage Bow had been used, then how could Li Yunmu's offense end so quickly? In the next instant, a dimensional crack filled with blackness opened, and a being also from the 5th dimension, an underworld raven, flew out, flapping its wings. The next act which followed was a complete massacre which caused the ground to turn red with blood. But it wasn't the massacre of a fluxer, rather that of the monsters of the Tower of Glory. If this scene was displayed to the outside world, probably everyone watching would go crazy. Perhaps, whatever the outsiders thought, they wouldn't be able to conclude that a trifling ordinary crystal fluxer was surprisingly the cause of this massacre on the 5th level of the Tower of Glory. When the final Hell Rat was also shot dead by Li Yunmu, the corpses of the monsters gradually disappeared, revealing 15 shiny tower badges. Hey, how come there are 15? Shouldn't the 5th level only drop 5 badges? Although Li Yunmu was happy, he also was suspicious. Regardless of his suspicion, he still collected the 15 extremely valuable badges and stowed them in his badge storage. Chapter 113, Underworld Raven vs Hell Rat. 1 tower badge dropped at 1st level, 2 dropped at 2nd level, 3 dropped at 3rd level, 4 dropped at 4th level, so according to logic shouldn't only 5 drop at 5th level? But presently 15 had dropped? Could it be because of that Hell Rat battle general? After Host had killed the Hell Rat battle general, 10 tower badges dropped from its body. System issued a timely reminder. That is the case. Li Yunmu's mind was jolted. Killing a boss-level creature would surprisingly earn him more tower badges. Awesome, this was too awesome. In this case, maybe there is hope for him to collect 250 tower badges. Then he could exchange them for the sacred shadow female's virgin blood. Even obtaining ancient freezing rune wasn't impossible. Li Yunmu counted the number of tower badges he had collected presently, altogether 25 tower badges. He was still quite far from the required number. But it doesn't matter right now, time to go to 6th level. 6th level, he hadn't expected that he would still have to fight against Hell Rats. Initially, Li Yunmu believed that after killing the Dark Claw Hell Rat boss, he will have to fight even more formidable monsters in the 6th level. But clearly this wasn't the case. Although the number of Hell Rats had increased again and reached 59, which may give a headache to other people, but for Li Yunmu, all of them were just cannon fodder. However, his expression changed when he saw the 2 additional huge Hell Rat general with them. Instantly, his pupil shrunk. Good God, this Tower of Glory is really terrifying. No wonder, the majority of silver crystal fluxers from the 6 major continents couldn't reach even the 10th level. Looking at it now, even with the elites of silver crystal fluxers wouldn't be able to clear this 5th and 6th level, let alone advancing to 10th level. Did this mean that the previous pattern would change, and as he advanced to next levels, the number of Hell Rat battle generals will increase by 1 with each level? F***CK, these Hell Rat battle generals aren't weak, they are silver crystal layer dimensional beasts. The bodies of dimensional beasts were already considered as more powerful than the body of fluxers. Under ordinary circumstances, a one-on-one was extremely difficult. But presently, he was confronted with 2 Hell Rats battle generals and 59 savage Hell Rats. Li Yunmu thought about the 2 names on the challengers ranking, Man Tian and Hai Yu. What did these 2 finally relied upon to reach the 20th level? Hard to imagine. Fighting maybe. He didn't thinking about this issue much and again used a similar strategy. Underworld Raven Battle Bow appeared again and a shot of Heavenly Dog engulfs Moon was launched. Oh, not correct, this time it wasn't a single shot of Heavenly Dog engulfs Moon, rather 3 Heavenly Dogs rolled up in black clouds pounced towards the enemy as Li Yan and Li Feng also received Li Yunmu's command. Finally they also substituted the Snow Guzzle cold blades in their hand with the Underworld Raven Bow hanging on their backs and shot the Heavenly Dog engulfs Moon. After all, Li Yunmu wasn't fighting solo here, rather 3 identical Li Yunmus were battling together. This was an extremely favorable location for shadows. 3 Heavenly Dogs rushed towards the group of rats, including the 2 Hell Rat battle generals who were unable to save themselves and immediately exploded on the spot. The additional 1 shot of Heavenly Dog engulfs Moon was fired by Li Yun at the location where the concentration of the Hell Rats was the largest. Immediately, the 3 arrows of deadly bow skill instantly killed majority of the dimensional beasts of the 6th level. Even more terrifying thing was that the Heavenly Dog engulfs Moon's arrow shot by Li Yun didn't explode like the other 2, rather it was used as Heavenly Heal. Instantly, the 3 of them, Li Yunmu, Li Yun and Li Feng, one by one absorbed the vitality swallowed by the Heavenly Dog engulfs Moon to replenish their energy. It can also do this? Equal distribution. The use of Heavenly Heal ability of Li Yun's shot, however, caused Li Yunmu to discover something new. The heavenly dog engulfs Moon's arrow fired by the shadow had not only absorbed the vitality, it had even distributed it equally among the three of them. Awesome! The next scene, however, was even more savage. Li Yunmu's underworld raven H.A.C.K had altogether 9 minor layers unsealed by now. So when Li Yun and Li Feng, these two shadows also triggered the special ability of blood summoning. Instantly, more and more underworld ravens continued to appear in the 6th level of Tower of Glory. When himself and the two shadows had dealt with the group of hell rats, there were 27 underworld ravens at Li Yunmu's side. Wow, haha, underworld ravens battling hell rats, who cares even if they are more in number. Li Yunmu was extremely excited right now. The two types of monsters both had come from true 5th dimension, but the 27 underworld ravens by Li Yunmu's side were at Black Crystal layer, fully 1 layer higher than the hell rats. The underworld ravens continued to become more and more stronger after eating the flesh and blood. They had the unique property that the more they battled, the more powerful they became. So underworld ravens were far more formidable compared to hell rats. 27 underworld ravens had dealt with all the hell rats. Then they all together pounced on the corpse of the 2 hell rat battle generals, which had already exploded into pieces earlier. When they had finished feasting on the 2 bull-sized hell rat corpses, instantly, Li Yunmu felt as if he was seeing something wrong. The first 9 underworld ravens summoned by him seemed to become more and more powerful, sending an omen similar to making a breakthrough just before the battle. 7th level, 69 hell rats and 3 hell rat battle generals. But the increase in monsters at every level of Tower of Glory was already unable to catch up to the rate of increase of underworld raven H.A.C.K.'s combat strength. As Li Yunmu had already obtained 3,000 ability points after killing the dimensional monsters in the previous 6 levels. He instantly used these ability points to again open 3 minor layers of the underworld raven H.A.C.K with any hesitation. This brought the number of unsealed layers to 12. Shiu 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 shiu. At this moment, Li Yunmu, Li Feng, and Li Yun had already collected their snow guzzle cold blade and were successively firing arrows towards the hell rats. 9 arrow hitting the target, again summoned 9 underworld ravens from true 5th dimension. The total number of underworld ravens increased to 36 black crystal layer underworld ravens. Instantly they surrounded and attacked the 3 silver crystal hell rat battle generals, and those pitiful 3 hell rat battle generals instantly became the food. Bang! 9 silvery lights filled the 7th level. Sure enough, after eating the corpses of the 3 hell rat battle generals, the first 9 underworld ravens summoned by Li Yunmu broke through one after another, and each of them reached silver crystal layer and became even more fierce. Following which, the battle naturally became one-sided. With the 9 silver crystal layer underworld ravens by his side, Li Yunmu could only become a spectator of the battle. It wasn't that he was slacking, rather there was no need for him take action. Not only him, even the 2 shadows Li Yun and Li Feng were also standing silently on their master's sides at this moment. The fight in the 7th level already didn't require them to take action. The 36 underworld ravens were wreaking havoc in the 7th level. Within a short few minutes, Li Yunmu again received 1,200 ability and experience points. Meanwhile, 37 tower badges laid on ground, flickering incessantly. 76 tower badges, time to work harder. When Li Yunmu picked them, instantly his mind was greatly jolted. His target of 250 tower badges was coming closer and closer. However, while Li Yunmu was going on a killing spree and collecting badges within the Tower of Glory, at this time, the matter of Li Sek's 3rd disciple, Li Yunmu being beaten badly by Tang Ruokan was creating increasingly more commotion at the online forum of Cloud City Warzone. Chapter 114, same name, that's all. As Li Yunmu, the main character of this debacle, hadn't personally appeared to provide an explanation, it caused even more people to believe that the so-called mysterious Li Sek's disciple was just a show-off. Haha, whom are you all looking for? Li Yunmu hadn't dared to show his face. Even Li Yun or Li Feng also didn't dare to come to the dimensional battlefield today. If they don't have a guilty conscience, then what else is stopping them? Some people are just unwilling to resign, especially those who have the surname Li. Do you guys still believe that there is a great hidden sect who will appreciate you? Ha ha ha, keep dreaming. As the time gradually passed, those supporters who had full confidence in Li Yunmu also began to waver. Did Li Yunmu really lose the fight in the real world? He even kneeled to admit his error? These supporters initially didn't dare to believe, because regardless of whether it was Li Yunmu or Li Yun or Li Feng, the battle prowess they had shown on the dimensional battlefield was witnessed by everyone personally. Even if dimensional battlefield didn't let a fluxer use the crystal armor, Tang Ruokan shouldn't have had such a great advantage in the real world. The disparity between the two of them shouldn't be so great. I don't believe this. Even in real world, our Yun could easily dominate the fluxers in the top 10 most powerful list. Precisely, although that Li Yunmu's true strength couldn't compare to Li Yun or Li Feng, however everyone here witnessed the power of that deadly bow skill and that fifth-dimensional treasure weapon. They aren't something to be trifled with, not to mention, he also uses the violent blade skill. Many people weren't willing to believe this matter. But given the fact that Li Yunmu and other two hadn't appeared to refute the rumor, many followers who weren't their staunch supporters also began to believe it. However, at this moment, another new post regarding this scandal appeared, which decisively concluded Li Yunmu's miserable defeat. Because this poster was surprisingly from the Lucky Wind Great Courtyard and also a fellow newcomer like Li Yunmu, her name was Zhou Jing. As a member of Lucky Wind Great Courtyard who had personally witnessed the whole matter, her testimony sealed the fact that Li Yunmu was completely dominated by the opponent and had even kneeled. Moreover, two more newcomer fluxers of Lucky Wind Great Courtyard also posted to guarantee that this had indeed happened and they had personally witnessed it. This time, the incident of Tang Ruokan defeating the mysterious sect caused great commotion on the Cloud City war zone. Quickly look, their fellow students of the same courtyard have confirmed this. Moreover, it is not just one witness, rather three. Where is that Tangan? Would you still continue to cover the true facts? Pa. Defeat is defeat. Why try to hide it? Why be a sore loser? Lucky Wind Great Courtyard Senior Tang and or even that light energy fluxer, Lunuja, would they still try to save face for Li Yunmu? We all misjudged you previously, you people are completely without any morals. With the sudden appearance of Lucky Wind Great Courtyard's Zhou Jing and other two, the debate immediately became one-sided. Originally, there were still some people who supported Li Yun and his fellow disciple. They instantly felt extreme despair. Furthermore, since the protagonist hadn't dared to appear personally, this time, the debate was complete over. These disciples of so-called mysterious sect were surprisingly unable to endure even a single defeat. Just when, everyone believed that Li Yunmu had really lost and knelt down. Even Zhou Jing, this crazy woman, was finally convinced that she had completely shamed Li Yunmu's name and taken a proper revenge for Ho Wu. Suddenly, an extremely dazzling piece of news appeared on every Fluxor Stellar COMM. Congratulations, Central Continent! Li Yunmu, as an ordinary crystal fluxer, had successfully broken through the 10th level of Tower of Glory. Congratulations, Central Continent! Li Yunmu, as an ordinary crystal fluxer, had successfully broken through the 10th level of Tower of Glory. Congratulations, Central Continent! Li Yunmu, as an ordinary crystal fluxer, had successfully broken through the 10th level of Tower of Glory. 3 successive repeated global announcements from the Fluxor Association immediately startled each and every fluxer. 10th level of Tower of Glory? He had crashed his way through alone? Who is this Central Continent's Li Yunmu? Who is he exactly? Instantly, every fluxer's thoughts had gone completely wild. Heavens, this is the 3 successive global announcements from the Fluxor Guild which forcefully catch the people's attention. This news was just announced at the Tower of Glory. Supreme Glory. This name wasn't in vain. All the Fluxers who possessed the Fluxer Association badge and were registered, at this instant, were left completely dazzled by this news, which was announced with special lighting effects. 10th layer of Tower of Glory. Easily cleared? It depends on the cultivation of the Fluxer. If a golden crystal Fluxer had cleared the Tower of Glory's 10th level, then Fluxer Association will certainly not make any announcement, let alone speak of global announcements. If it was a silver crystal Fluxer who achieved it, then Fluxer Association would make a public announcement only once in each of the war zones of all major cities of the continent from which the Fluxer hailed. If it was a black crystal Fluxer who had accomplished it, then Fluxer Association would make one announcement to the entire continent which that particular Fluxer belongs to. Then what if the person who cleared the 10th level of Tower of Glory was a Fluxer at the lowest layer, the ordinary crystal layer? Then the majestic event like presently happening would occur. In all the 6 great continents, as long as one has a Fluxer badge and is registered as a Fluxer, all would receive the supreme glory of the global announcement filled with lighting effects. Moreover, the announcement would even be repeated 3 times to gloriously declare the victory in all continents and notify all Fluxers in the world. Instantly, the thoughts of Fluxers went wild. Ordinary crystal Fluxer. No one expected that today another super rookie who could clear the first 10 levels, would appear. Silence, complete silence. After the 3 successive notifications of Supreme Glory were announced, all the Fluxers of the Cloud City War Zone who were originally causing a commotion, saying that Li Yunmu was forced to kneel down in front of Tang Ruokan, were instantly silenced at that very moment. The silence continued for a long while. Suddenly, the number of posts on the online forum explosively increased. Immediately entire Cloud City Warzone's online forum exploded. Li Yunmu? Is it the Li Yunmu who we were just arguing about? F***CKU, how is that even possible? How did an ordinary crystal Fluxer clear the first 10 levels of Tower of Glory? In our central continent, we have almost 3.6 billion. There are countless Fluxers among them. I don't believe that the Li Yunmu from the announcement is the guy from our Cloud City's Lucky Wind Great Courtyard. Haha, phony, it is certainly someone with the same name. How can a person who was forced to kneel down in front of our Cloud City's 10 most powerful people be the formidable person who obtained the supreme glory? Although at that moment, most of the people were completely shocked by the suddenly declared supreme glory announcement, but then, everyone again returned to laughing. Even the supporters of the 3 disciples of the mysterious sect were left even more helpless by this sudden global announcement. Why did this happen? How could this Li Yunmu be so unlucky? He was already being burned on a stake, but who could have known that a powerful person's name would be suddenly announced for clearing the first 10 levels of Tower of Glory and he would have the same name as Li Yunmu? There wasn't any need to imagine what's going to happen now. Both of them would be compared. Lucky Wind Great Courtyard's Li Yunmu would be insulted even more. He really was extremely unlucky. However, just when everyone had believed that this Li Yunmu wasn't the same as the Li Yunmu from Lucky Wind Great Courtyard, suddenly, a post flickering with red color was made in the online forum of Cloud City War Zone. The post was pinned at the top of the online forum and its title was, "Time to celebrate. Congratulations Lucky Wind Great Courtyard's Li Yunmu for advancing past the first 10 levels of Tower of Glory and proclaiming supreme glory in the whole world." When the official of Cloud City Warzone's online forum posted this red-colored shiny post, pinned at the top of the online forum, everyone became lifeless. Hey, are they the same person? This can't be true. Damn, it really is Lucky Wind Great Courtyard's Li Yunmu? He advanced past the first 10 levels? This can't be real. Chapter 115, Successive Titles. At this very moment, a red-colored festive post was made on the Cloud City Warzone's official forum. The post was pasted so quickly after the announcement that everyone was shocked. This Li Yunmu is Lucky Wind City's Li Yunmu? For a short while, no one dared to believe that it was all true. But, how could a person who had been unable to defeat even Tang Ruokan, have the strength to advance through the first 10 layers of Tower of Glory. And also have this Tower of Glory, make 3 repeated global announcements through the Fluxer Association? It must be known that even if Tang Ruokan was a silver crystal fluxer, he could barely advance to the 8th level. So how can a person who was completely suppressed by Tang Ruokan, advance past the first major hurdle of 10th level with his ordinary crystal layer cultivation? However, the next set of actions by Heavenly Cloud City, completely convinced all these suspicious people that this had indeed happened without any shred of doubt. Soon, another piece of information popped up on the official forum. Heavenly Cloud City's city lord had just now made a public announcement for all the 136 cities under his command. Beginning from today, the Heavenly Cloud City's military had formally and unconditionally bestowed the title of Honorary Lieutenant Commander on Li Yunmu. He would now formally get the status and treatment accorded to a lieutenant commander, and his family members would gain the unconditional qualifications to reside in Heavenly Cloud City and would also receive the standard protective rights bestowed by Army to kith and kin of lieutenant commander. Everyone was completely shocked on hearing this. Lieutenant commander, following the information regarding advancing past first 10 levels of Tower of Glory, even the City Lord of Heavenly Cloud City had bestowed him the title of Lieutenant Commander. A Lieutenant Commander who was less than 17 years old and would receive all the privileges of top brass within the Heavenly Cloud City. However, before long had passed since the eyes of people turned red with envy on hearing this information, this time, even the primary city of the central continent also made their move. Within a short while, the primary city of Central Continent also announced that to formally bestow the title of Heavenly Major General on Li Yunmu. The person himself and his family members would be officially granted the unconditional qualification to reside in the primary city and would be given a young Heavenly General's mansion. The City Lord of Primary City had personally accorded this mansion to Li Yunmu, naming it as Heavenly Major General Azure Dragon's Mansion. Meanwhile, Li Yunmu was also conferred the title of Heavenly Major General Azure Dragon of the Central Continent, which countless youngsters were crazy about. With the privileges and status equal to a Major General, he could even constitute his own Heavenly General Guard Corps. Shocking news! The position of Honorary Lieutenant General accorded by Heavenly Cloud City was just meaningless glory, he wouldn't enjoy any real authority or benefits. But this title of Heavenly Major General provided him genuine supreme glory and excellent benefits. Just the value of the Major General mansion given to him by the City Lord of Primary City would be astronomical. After all, the prices of land in the primary city are terrifyingly expensive. Moreover, this title of Heavenly Major General wasn't without substance. Apart from representing supreme glory and status on the central continent, it also provided him formidable authority and powerful privileges. The central continent allowing him to form his own Heavenly General Guard Corps, was just one of these real privileges. Not to mention the fact that the title of Heavenly Major General was held by only 30 people among all the fluxers from the entire central continent who had come to 5th dimension this year. Not long ago, Xie Kyungsu and Wang Ming became one of those who were granted the title of Heavenly Major General. But presently, another person from Heavenly Cloud City had obtained that title, and that was Li Yunmu. This time, those people with malicious intentions who were ready to believe it, also didn't have the confidence anymore. In front of the supreme glory and the title, regardless of whatever method they used to shame Li Yunmu, it was completely useless. Shock, regret, receiving the series of information conferring titles, multitudes of thoughts were racing through everyone's mind. However, before everyone could digest the series of titles conferred to Li Yunmu by Central Continent and Cloud City, suddenly, the most formidable war god temple on Central Continent followed the suit and made a proclamation. From today, Li Yunmu's name will be included as contestant of War God Temple's trial by fire, giving him the qualifications to enter the trial of fire held by War God Temple. This time, everyone became numb. Only now, every fluxer became realized the significance of advancing past the Tower of Glory's first 10 levels with a cultivation of ordinary crystal layer. Many people simply hadn't anticipated that Fluxor Guild's announcement of Tower of Glory would surprisingly mean this sort of incomparable supreme glory. They also knew that not long ago, when Xiu and Wang Ming had charged past the 20th level of Tower of Glory, although they had also been conferred titles by the Central Continent, but it wasn't as magnificent as right now, when Li Yunmu was being conferred titles. Not to mention that the two of them had charged past the 20th level relying on their silver crystal layer cultivation, but Li Yunmu was completely different. He was an ordinary crystal fluxer. The difference between the cultivation of both parties was full 3 layers, moreover his background also wasn't as extraordinary as them. But presently, he had advanced past the 10th level at the lowest layer of cultivation. Damn, War God Temple! This time even War God Temple had taken action. Yes, even Xiu and Wang Ming also didn't possess the qualifications to gain approval of War God Temple. However, this Li Yunmu is able to gain the approval of War God Temple. This is just too shocking. This is what really mean by battle prowess shooting through heavens. If his battle strength hadn't been extremely formidable, how would he be able to gain War God Temple's approval? Li Yunmu has finally obtained the heavens. This mysterious Li sect, how powerful is it exactly? Those morons from before, do you still dare to claim that Li Yunmu lost to Tang Ruokan? Haha, a trifling person of heavenly dragon Tang family belonging to the top 10 most powerful also dares to claim that he has badly embarrassed a heavenly major general? Are you sure, you haven't lost your mind completely? A person who had gained War God Temple's approval, a heavenly major general lord who has terrifying battle strength. Can any of you weaklings reach his level? The announcements made by Heavenly Cloud City, Central Continent's primary city and War God Temple, created a commotion at the Cloud City Warzone's official forum. Even those high-level experts who usually appeared only in some special events, had also come out one by one this time because of the commotion. However, they weren't elegant and cold like their usual self, rather were completely confused about what to do now. The repeated announcements all over the world including Central Continent, the news about the series of titles conferred, all of these left these fluxers cultivating secretly, gobsmacked. As for the previous joke that Tang Ruokan had defeated Li Yunmu, how can these powerful people not see the difference of strength between the two parties? However, they hadn't appeared at that time, because Li Yunmu didn't had the qualifications, but presently everything had changed. The position of Heavenly Major General conferred by Central Continent was only conferred to 36 people every year. Each position represented huge potential and glory for newcomer fluxers. When someone had cultivated to the next layer, then the position of that person will be left vacant and later someone else from the newcomer fluxers will be chosen. Only the 36 fluxers who had the most formidable battle strength and highest potential in the entire Central Continent will have the qualifications to be conferred a title of Heavenly Major General and would be bestowed a Heavenly General Mansion with special name. Moreover, presently, since Li Yunmu had advanced past the first 10 levels at the lowest level of cultivation, he was instantly granted the title of Heavenly Major General. From this, it could be clearly seen how much the Central Continent approved of Li Yunmu. But there was also more to it. The War God Temple, which had never based its decision on fake glory, rather only relied on the combat strength, had also given the sacred qualifications to Li Yunmu to enter. This information had completely shocked those fluxers cultivating bitterly in secret. If the title of Heavenly Major General Azure Dragon granted by Central Continent wasn't enough to illustrate Li Yunmu's potential and battle strength, then the sacred invitation of War God Temple had completely proved his abilities, leaving no shred of doubt. Chapter 116, Don't be scared, be strong. At this moment, Li Yunmu had started advancing towards 11th level. The increase in level of difficulty between the previous 3 levels, 8th, 9th and 10th, wasn't extremely huge. The 8th level had 4 Silver Crystal Hell Rat Battle General, the 9th had 5. Even if the group of ordinary crystal layer rats is ignored, still a Silver Crystal Fluxer, by himself, had to fight against 5 peak Silver Crystal Dimensional Beasts, who also had formidable bodies, to advance to the next level. This is also the reason why Tang Ruokan, who was an elite among elites, could go no farther than 8th level. It wasn't because he was weak, rather because the enemy was far more formidable. However, Li Yunmu was different. He mentally assessed that even if he didn't use a super weapon like Underworld Raven S.H.A.D.W, he would still be easily clear the 9th level with his personal strength. There was no why, only because after the addition of King's crystal armor to his arsenal and with the heavenly world absorbing damage, presently his 4-layer defense system had caused his defensive power to shoot through the roof. Increased to what extent, you say? Even a Hell Rat battle general whose sharp claws could easily tear apart silver crystal armor, were still unable to break his defense, after he gave it a try previously. At that time, he purposely didn't move from his position, yet the claws had no effect. Unrivaled defense makes things extremely simple. These Hell Rat battle generals who were famous for their sharp claws had even used their full strength, but still they could pierce through the King's crystal armor, his 2nd layer of defense. Apart from this, the Hell Rat battle generals couldn't even reach Li Yunmu's last 2 layers of defense, the iron body and heavenly world, which could absorb damage. In other words, presently his defense was powerful enough to survive under an all-out attack by elites at the peak of silver crystal layer. Probably, they also wouldn't be able to break his 2nd layer of defense, or at most, barely touch the 3rd layer. Too awesome! Naturally, Li Yunmu's pride was completely crushed soon. Because, next he encountered the first major hurdle at 10th level. Why had Li Yunmu attracted the attention of entire central continent and even War God Temple, who only favored the ones with battle potential, when he cleared the 10th level? This question wasn't without reason. The answer lied in the opponents against him in the 10th level. This level had altogether 99 first-layer Hell Rats, 5 silver crystal Hell Rat battle generals, and there was still one more, a golden crystal layer Dark Claw Hell Rat Emperor. Yes, it was a Hell Rat Emperor. He hadn't seen wrong, it was a dimensional beast with cultivation equal to a golden crystal fluxer, however its physical body was quite formidable compared to human fluxers. Their extremely tyrannical body was the main reason why the disparity between dimensional beast and same-layer fluxer was so huge. And the Hell Rat Emperor, a dimensional beast at golden crystal layer, represented the pinnacle battle strength of the 4th layer with its formidable body and powerful battle prowess. If Li Yunmu hadn't had the Underworld Raven S.H.A.D.W or the 2 shadows, Li Yun and Li Feng didn't exist and had to fight on his own, then probably he would have lost here. 10th level, at this moment, regardless of whether it was the Dark Claw Hell Rats or Hell Rat battle generals, they were all just cannon fodder. In Li Yunmu's eyes, there was only one target, the Hell Rat Emperor, who was enormous in size, almost comparable to a recreational vehicle. This one fight, Li Yunmu battled ferociously at the 10th level. The formidable strength of the opponent plus the increased difficulty at 10th level had provoked the pride and desire to battle in him. This one fight, Li Yunmu directly commanded all the Underworld Ravens from stay behind and watch from far away. While he and the 2 shadows, instead rushed forward without glancing back. After they reached the Hell Rat Emperor, the heaven-shaking battle began. Naturally, using heaven-shaking was quite an exaggeration here. But from this, the intensity of this battle could be clearly felt. As for why Li Yunmu had made the unreasonable decision of making the Underworld Ravens stay away while he and the 2 shadows battled with the Hell Rat Emperor? No, he didn't make this decision, because he was mentally ill or had eaten something wrong. Rather, he just wanted to battle at his full strength without the assistance of a cheat weapon like the 7th-dimensional Underworld Raven S.H.A.D.W. He just desired to battle directly with the Hell Rat Emperor without any tricks, so as to test his true battle strength presently. Because he himself didn't know that how effective was their group of 3 fighting at full strength while cooperating with each other was. Admiralty cover, iron body, King's crystal armor were fully activated. Violent blade skill, insect step, arrow evasion, violent blade critical leap strike, tyrannical cross-shaped arms skill, compacted aurora killing justice, world killing fist, regardless of whether it was Li Yunmu or Li Yun or Li Feng, all of them were using all the skills to their limits, in this battle. Even the Thunder Dark Flux energy which he hadn't used until now, was also being used to its full strength. He had restricted the use of S.H.A.D.W, Wind God Kick as well as Danger Critical Strike. Li Yunmu and the Shadows were keeping nothing in reserve, in this battle, especially the Dark Flux energy which he was using the first time. The world-killing fist launched by him using iron-like hard fists, not only contained the sealing space energy, but also terrifying blue-colored electricity. His fists were covered with deep blue-colored frightening thunder which were compressed to their limits into small threads of electricity. Although their overall amount was very huge, but the damage caused to the Hell Rat Emperor was extremely terrifying. Since the difference between both sides was too large, Li Yunmu's world-killing fist was unable to seal the movements of the Hell Rat Emperor. The opponent was a house-sized beast running towards him. Every time they collided, an enormous impact force would be transferred to his body. Li Yunmu's heavenly world was still small. Despite that, as long as the sealing energy was 20%-30% effective, it was fully sufficient. He dashed forward while switching between arrow evasion and 4th level insect step. Li Yunmu kept launching his terrifying electric feast one after another, attacking the frighteningly formidable body of the Hell Rat Emperor. Moreover, Li Yunmu still continued to attack with his most optimal battle technique, the swiftly flowing overkill technique. He kept using insect step, charged assault, violent blade critical leap strike like torrential rain and howling winds, each strike swifter and faster than last one, then occasionally he would use arrow evasion to dodge the attack to his vital organs and launch another offense like a wild wind, from another side. Every time he attacked, he didn't deal much damage, but was extremely swift. For the time being, both Li Yunmu and Li Yun kept using this strategy to attack Hell Rat Emperor. As for Li Feng's movements were even more simple. It didn't use either the world-killing fist or violent blade skill, it used the compacted Aurora Killing Justice together with occasional use of critical leap strike and jumped high in the air and struck it head-on. The power of the chop even exceeded Aurora Killing Justice. It can't be denied that among the three of them, one person and two shadows, the highest damage dealer was Li Feng. Regardless of whether it was compacted Aurora Killing Justice or normal Aurora Killing Justice. When the Snow Guzzle Cold Blade grasped in his both hands, laced with layer of blade energy and thunder energy, chopped down, he caused great damage to the Hell Rat Emperor. Thus, Li Feng was also the one who received the terrifying counterattacks of the Hell Rat Emperor. When the 4th layer Golden Crystal Hell Rat Emperor's counterattacked with its extremely tyrannical physical body, that was absolutely frightening. Silver Crystal Great Hell Rat Battle General's sharp claws could easily tear apart Silver Crystal Fluxer's crystal armor, let alone speak of this incomparably formidable Hell Rat Emperor. Its every claw attack was filled with enormous energy and moved with terrifying speed as well as could deal great damage. Even if Li Feng had 4-layer defense system and the heavenly world to absorb damage, but still it was extremely difficult for him to resist this thunderous punch alone. Chapter 117, Finally Enough. If it had been a Golden Crystal Fluxer's full power attack, then maybe Li Yunmu's present defense would have barely endured it. But this wasn't a human Fluxer. Instead, it was a high-class dimensional beast with extremely formidable body. Yet Li Feng didn't need to defend alone. He still had Li Yunmu and Li Yun by his side. Arrow evasion, insect step, insect step, insect step, tyrannical cross-shaped arms skill. Whenever the Hell Rat Emperor launched his terrifying attack, regardless of whether it was Li Yunmu himself or Li Yun or Li Feng, all would unleash the tyrannical cross-shaped arm skill which had become an A-grade skill after being repaired. If anyone couldn't resist the attack, then they would immediately use insect step 4 times to nimbly move away and let the others do the blocking. If the 4-layer defense system couldn't resist against the all-out attack of Hell Rat Emperor, then adding in the active defensive skill of tyrannical cross-shaped arms would make them able to stand it. After Li Yunmu's cultivation of the A-grade skill tyrannical cross-shaped arms reached the 10th level, every time he crossed his hands in front of his chest in a defensive gesture, flux energy would burst forth and wrap around them, turning into two enormous arms in energy form. One person and two shadows kept resisting against the increasingly terrifying counterattacks of the Hell Rat Emperor by relying on the defensive skill. Naturally, even though it was a Hell Rat Emperor, it still hadn't broken through to 12 Rainbow Light King grade dimensional monster. Neither did it have the body protecting rainbow lights nor the infinite rainbow energy. Thus, this battle on the 10th level of one person and two shadows against a monster simply turned into an extremely close and intense fight which lasted for more than half an hour. The Hell Rat Emperor, which was as large as a house and looked terrifying, was unable to withstand the continuous violent attacks of Li Yunmu and the other two. He fell, and Li Yunmu finally cleared the 10th level by relying on his own power. He hadn't used the Underworld Raven Sage Bow or the Wind God Tornado Kick or even the Critical Danger Strike, which was triggered in the most desperate straits. In this way, the last boss of the 10th level, Hell Rat Emperor, fell down on the ground. Its incomparably huge corpse gradually disappeared, revealing 30 tower badges on the ground. This time, it could be said that Li Yunmu's harvest was huge, extremely huge. As for the remaining Hell Rats and Hell Rat generals, most of them had died after getting caught up in the extremely fierce battle. What concerned the still alive cannon fodder, Li Yunmu waved his hand and the flock of underworld ravens instantly dealt with them. Once they finished eating all the Hell Rat corpses in the 10th level, the strength of every single raven in this ever-increasing flock had increased by a large margin, temporarily entering the silver crystal layer. The first 9 underworld ravens were obviously the most powerful though. Although they didn't advance to the golden crystal layer after eating the corpse of the Hell Rat Emperor, but the presence exuded by them was already of the peak of silver crystal layer. Apparently, after devouring flesh continuously, the highest layer they could temporarily attain was the one they had attained now. However, Li Yunmu knew that this wasn't truly the endpoint for the underworld ravens. Because they still could eat the flesh and blood of their comrades and absorb their vitality, temporarily breaking through to the 4th layer. Yet he didn't know whether they could also advance to the next step and reach the 5th layer, the rainbow crystal layer. It was normal for him not to know though, because he himself hadn't tried this. The past few levels had been comparatively easy, apart from the recent battle with the Hell Rat Emperor. However, this battle had increased Li Yunmu's confidence. He now possessed real strength when going all out. It even wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that if he used dark flux energy, one person and two shadows could prevail over a golden crystal fluxer. Regarding the results of this test battle, Li Yunmu was completely satisfied. Because this meant that from now on he could walk confidently within the 5th dimension. Why could he walk confidently? Because as long as he was in the 5th dimension, who would dare to try and harm even a hair of his? If he and both shadows went all out, then even a golden crystal fluxer would be chopped down. If anyone dared to attack him, there was only one outcome waiting for them: being chopped. Chopping one person after another, or killing one group after another in front of Li Yunmu's absolute defense, golden crystal human fluxers, regardless of their numbers, were just floating clouds. As long as they couldn't break his defense, and as long as he could kill them, their numbers didn't matter. Even if a powerful rainbow crystal layer person came, so what? Relying on his abnormal and modified defense, Li Yunmu could fight back or at least run away with his life. He had discovered that the 4-layer defense system was not able to endure the full power attack of the Hell Rat Emperor. The reason for this was due to the flesh of such a high-level dimensional beast being extremely tyrannical. According to Li Yunmu's estimation, an all-out offense of a rainbow crystal human fluxer would be roughly comparable to such an attack, even if the human rainbow crystal fluxer was a layer higher in cultivation than the Hell Rat Emperor. Li Yunmu had already made a decision before entering the Tower of Glory this time that he would certainly spend the space elements required to learn another defensive cultivation method. He knew that he needed to increase the layers in his defense one by one. If he did that, apart from the king-grade dimensional beasts, no one would pose a real threat to him. But he had to admit that the earnings of the Tower of Glory's 10th level weren't really huge. After all, adding his profits in the 8th, 9th, and 10th levels, he had only accumulated 5,000 experience and ability points. Without any hesitation, he once again used the 5,000 ability points on the Underworld Raven S.H.A.D.W. Instantly, another 5 layers of seals were opened, and of the 333 minor layers, presently, he had already lifted the seals on 17 of them. This meant that in other worlds he could summon a maximum of 17 Underworld Ravens using his blood summoning. Then if his number was added those of Li Feng and Li Yun, the total would reach 51. Such a number of ravens was quite frightening. Instead of a single S.H.A.D.W, there were 3. Once this 7th dimension frightening sage weapon had fallen into Li Yunmu's hands, it proved to be extremely terrifying. While the S.H.A.D.W itself was powerful, it wasn't the strongest thing around. The really terrifying thing was the shadow's ability to synchronize with the main body's strength. However, Li Yunmu also knew that going too far was as bad as not going far enough. The frightening number of underworld ravens which could be summoned had already far surpassed the limit of a 5th-dimensional treasure weapon. People back then had believed that his underworld raven S.H.A.D.W was a 5th-dimensional weapon because he had only summoned 9 underworld ravens at that time. This feat was still under the limit of a 5th-dimensional treasure weapon. The highest number of beings it could summon was restricted to 30. In other words, other than in an emergency, Li Yunmu absolutely couldn't summon more than 30 underworld ravens in front of other people. "System, show my profile," Li Yunmu suddenly said. Soon he noticed a little anomaly in his present stats. Apart from Admiralty cover, which had been upgraded to the 18th level, all other flux methods were only at 10th level. This wasn't too troublesome. Apart from that, all the foundation skills which he had comprehended had reached the 4th level. They hadn't been upgraded for a long time because they all required 5,000 proficiency points to reach the 5th level, Realm of Perfection. However, he also noticed that the Violent Blade skill, which had been the first to break through to the 4th level, required only 300 proficiency points to upgrade to the next level. Insect Step required 500, while Arrow Evasion required 1,000. The others were comparatively farther away. All of them lacked at least a couple thousand proficiency points. Among all the skills, the ones which were worth a mention were World Killing Fist and the newly comprehended Archery Foundation skill. Because Li Yunmu had been focused on hacking, they had been quickly upgraded to the 3rd level of experience makes progress easy. The world-crushing energy of the World Killing Fist had greatly increased. Furthermore, after the Archery Foundation skill had reached the 3rd level, Li Yunmu discovered, to his surprise, that he could now shoot 3 targeted arrows in succession. When it was 1st level, he could shoot 1 arrow. When it had reached 2nd, he could shoot 2 targeted arrows, and now 3 once it leveled up again. In other words, he could now shoot 3 arrows, one followed by another, which was really quite formidable. This Archery Foundation skill really had huge potential. Even if the system had given it a terrible name as was the usual, as long as his proficiency with it increased, it would become extremely impressive. After clearing the 10th layer, Li Yunmu had in his possession 273 tower badges, more than what he had originally needed for Sacred Shadow Female's Virgin Blood. Chapter 118, The Fruit. Li Yunmu felt that his current situation was crazy. He had never thought that after advancing past only 10 levels, he would be able to gather the 250 tower badges required to exchange for Sacred Shadow Female's Virgin Blood. This was why the War God Temple of the Central Continent had taken Li Yunmu so seriously. It wasn't because of the influence of the Tower of Glory's supreme glory, but rather because of the personal combat strength he had displayed. Besides, Li Yunmu wasn't aware that earning tower badges wasn't that easy. The reason why he had earned 273 so quickly was because the majority of the Hell Rat battle generals and Hell Rat emperors had all dropped some. It could be said that killing these small boss monsters was the only way to make a profit in the Tower of Glory. But is making a profit ever easy? The answer is no. Because only when it is an ordinary crystal fluxer who kills a boss monster at the 10th level that the drop rate of tower badges is 100%. If it's a black crystal fluxer who kills them, then the drop rate is only 50%. For a silver crystal fluxer, it's a mere 25%. As for a golden crystal fluxer, embarrassingly, there would be no drops for them. With the cultivation at the golden crystal layer, killing these monsters wasn't anything special. Thus, Li Yunmu was completely unaware of how difficult it was to make profit in this place, because the drop rate of tower badges had been 100% for him through the first 10 levels. Once Li Yunmu had collected the necessary amount of badges, he didn't say anything and immediately walked to the stone steel on the 10th level. After he found the shadow sacred female's virgin blood, he chose to exchange his badges for it. The next instant, the stone steel shone brightly and a beam of light shined on Li Yunmu's body, from top to bottom, as if searching for something. After a few seconds, a door to a special passage opened up. Li Yunmu resisted his desire to release a cry of surprise. This tower incarnation of the Flux Ancestor was certainly a heavenly world. Who knew how many other independent spaces were there? Moreover, the special passage's door, which had opened just then, should lead to a region where Li Yunmu could exchange badges for rewards. He didn't hesitate and stepped through the door. At that moment, his mind went blank. When he recovered, he was already standing in the exchange region. A ruthless and icy voice echoed within the space. The challenger is invited to offer their tower badges and choose the item they want to exchange for them. Li Yunmu listened with some concentration. Apparently, this voice really did belong to the low-intelligence creature which the system had told him about. Not long after he arrived, ancient copper scales was placed on a nearby table. Following the instructions of the intelligent life form, Li Yunmu counted 250 tower badges and placed them on one side of the scale. I want to exchange them for sacred shadow female's virgin blood. Please make it quick. Li Yunmu said anxiously. He wasn't anxious because of his situation, but rather because among the rewards of this Tower of Glory, there was only one portion of sacred shadow female's virgin blood. He was worried that it might be snatched by someone else before him and wished to be safe rather than sorry. After all, the Fluxer Association had established transfer channels to the heavenly world on all 6 continents. In such a huge world, who could guarantee that there wouldn't be any such unlucky coincidences? Fortunately, this sort of unlucky event didn't happen. As soon as Li Yunmu placed the required 250 tower badges on one side of the balance scales, a translucent triangular bottle appeared on the other side. The bottle was emitting a pure white light, as if it was sacred. After inspecting it carefully, Li Yunmu discovered that, in the deepest part of the light, there indeed was a drop of deep blue-colored blood. It was apparent that this was the virgin blood of sacred shadow female that he had been seeking. Li Yunmu hurriedly grabbed it. After searching high and low, far and near without any success, he had finally obtained this mother F***er now. At this moment, Li Yunmu was extremely excited. Before long, he was transferred back to the 10th level. There he didn't hesitate for a moment. He immediately opened his heavenly world and disappeared from the 10th level. Although this Tower of Glory was an incarnation of the Flux Ancestor, this did not stop Li Yunmu from entering his heavenly world. After all, it had merged with his body long ago. His body was the heavenly world, and the heavenly world was his body. Moreover, the consciousness of the Flux Ancestor had disappeared long ago, so the system had informed him that he didn't need to worry about his secrets being revealed. Thus this region, which seemed to be the most dangerous place to enter the heavenly world, was instead the most secure place on the whole earth, as he didn't need to worry about people spying on him. After entering the heavenly world, Li Yunmu reached into his storage bag. He took out the special dimensionality box which he had obtained after killing the king-grade dimensional beast. Inside it, calmly lay the seeds of mysterious origin. Although Li Yunmu didn't have any information on them, the system had appraised them as more valuable than the underworld raven destruction S.H.A.D.W. From this, it was clear that where these seeds appeared, they would attract the attention of deities and gods alike. Li Yunmu had waited for a long time, and now he would finally be able to learn their secret. Since the matter was decided, he casually chose a corner on the land of the heavenly world and buried the seeds. Then he took out the triangular bottle which he had obtained recently and opened it. He poured down the drop of blue-colored blood essence of sacred shadow female's virgin blood on the seeds. After it was poured, the extremely stable and not so large heavenly world was completely illuminated by the sacred blue light. My God, this thing is really scary. Li Yunmu retreated back a few steps, but his gaze still remained focused on the seeds which had already absorbed the sacred shadow female's blood essence. After being irrigated by the virgin blood, they began to grow at a speed which could be tracked with the naked eye, and a small sapling, 1 meter in height, broke through of the ground. It continued to grow 2 meters, and then 3. After the sapling reached 3 meters, it suddenly produced a shadow fruit at the top of the tree. This fruit started absorbing light, and in the next instant, all the light in Li Yunmu's world was sucked in and absorbed. The heavenly world turned completely dark in an instant. It was so dark that Li Yunmu couldn't even see his own hands. He felt as if he was reaching the limit of his endurance. At that moment, the shadow fruit suddenly blossomed with a dazzling blue light, and the heavenly world's normal order was restored. Congratulations, host! You have successfully cultivated Shadow Clan's God Tree, which requires a millennium to give birth to roots, a millennium for the tree to bloom, and another millennium to bear a fruit. Because you used the virgin blood of sacred shadow female to grow it quickly, you have successfully harvested the shadow female ancestor fruit. Would you like to awaken this fruit? The system said in Li Yunmu's ears. However, he was too distracted to pay any attention to it. At this moment, his whole focus was captured by the God Tree. This was an unusual tree. Its height wasn't more than 3 meters, and it was completely dark blue in color. At this moment, it had already produced a fruit, which was also dark blue in color and appeared to be translucent. Li Yunmu could vaguely see an elegant and graceful female who was sitting inside in a lotus position. This charming and strange fruit had completely captured Li Yunmu's attention. He felt as if he was watching the birth of the world's most mysterious, unique, and secretive female. Words like beautiful and stunning were no longer sufficient to describe the weird fruit. Chapter 119, Hidden Female Ancestor. Only after the system repeated its words for the 3rd time did Lin Yunmu sober up and react. He fiercely cried out in his heart. He had never expected that the seed would nurture such a fruit which had the body of a woman. What kind of monstrosity was this thing? Li Yunmu subconsciously said, System, is this Shadow Clan's God Tree? Is this the shadow sacred female born from the God Tree of this race? Yes, this is the God Tree of 7th Dimension's Shadow Clan. Hearing the system's reply, Li Yunmu became fearful. Apparently this fruit wasn't so simple. No wonder its assessed value was so high. Begin. Li Yunmu didn't speak anymore and resolved to open this fruit. The next instant after he ordered the start, the fist-sized, deep blue-colored fruit began to gradually split open. From within the fruit's husk, an exceptionally matured female body slowly emerged. It had a height of 10 centimeters, and its body proportions were completely according to the norm. She had dark blue skin and didn't seem alive. Yet with her head slightly raised, she was attentively watching Li Yunmu with her 2 blue-colored pupils. System released the next notification. Congratulations, host, you have successfully nurtured a shadow female ancestor. However, Li Yunmu was completely at his wit's end. What kind of demon was this? It wasn't a higher dimensional treasure tool or a sacred object or a monster, and it also didn't look like a human. This female spirit's presence resembled that of deities or demons. But she didn't seem to possess any intelligence. With his advanced judgment and intuition, Li Yunmu sensed that this female's mind was completely blank. It was pure and clean, like a new piece of paper. Shadow female ancestor? What kind of thing was that? A life form belonging to the Shadow Clan? But soon, all the doubts in his heart were solved with the system's explanation. Shadow female ancestor's newborn body is 7th dimension's formidable Shadow clan's ancestor god. But presently, she is just an infant, her brain is like a blank paper. As long as the host makes her absorb a drop of your blood essence, then you will form a contract with her. Following a series of notifications from the system, a huge amount of information poured into Li Yunmu's mind. After a long while, he understood everything. So this was the Shadow clan's supreme bloodline. If the sacred Shadow female is the Shadow clan's most majestic existence, then Shadow female ancestor is an existence equivalent to their god. Every Shadow female ancestor is born from a tree. After experiencing the beliefs and prayers of Shadow clan for 3 millenniums, she would be born. But presently, the seed Li Yunmu had obtained from the special dimensionality box had made the Shadow female ancestor descend. Furthermore, there was a huge difference between those born in the Shadow clan and this one. Because she hadn't received the devotion and prayers of the clansmen, day after day, year after year, for 3 years, she also hadn't received any filthiness of the world. Thus, this Shadow female ancestor was just like a newborn whose brain and thoughts were completely blank. As long as Li Yunmu formed a contract with her, then the fate of the two of them would be intertwined. Maybe they would even enter a master-servant relationship. If this Shadow female ancestor's infant remained by his side, then she could gradually mature by herself and finally attain the level of Shadow clan's genuine god ancestor, who had the power to frighten battle sages, as all of them could perish in front of a Shadow female ancestor. It had to be said that this was a life form from a 7th dimension, who had such formidable inner vitality that they were extremely close to deity level. Li Yunmu didn't fully grasp how truly terrifying such a being was, and he also was unclear about how formidable was the Shadow clan, but he did hear and understand one thing. From the time this life form was born, its innate strength was close to that of deities. Presently, Li Yunmu was watching a newborn Shadow female with whom he could enter a contract, becoming her master. After she was delivered back to 7th dimension's Shadow clan, which would allow her to receive the tributes and prayers of the Shadow clan, then within 2 to 3 years, this goddess would probably become an existence whose power was close to that of deities. Another option, which was recommended by the system, was to bring this Shadow female ancestor to his side in her infant stage. He should let her stay with him and slowly adapt to being by her master's side. However, this way she would mature slowly. From the two options, the first option, according to the system, was extremely dangerous. Once the Shadow female ancestor received the prayers and beliefs of the Shadow clan, because of her formidable inner vitality, she would turn into a genuine Shadow female ancestor. Then, it was extremely probable that she could forcefully erase the master-servant contract and even harm Li Yunmu, the master, through backlash. After all, how could a life form who was extremely close to the level of a deity willingly become a servant to another, especially someone who was much weaker than it? This meant that the second option was much safer. If Li Yunmu trained this innately formidable female infant into his own shadow, she would then successfully turn into one of his unique shadows. Li Yunmu didn't think about it for long. He decisively chose the second method, for, after all, entering into a contract with a deity-level life form was like playing with fire. The other party was an innately formidable being from the 7th dimension. She would certainly mature much faster compared to him and would become an existence more terrifying than battle sages in the short time of 2 to 3 years. Since this was going to happen anyway, there wasn't any need for Lin Yunmu to think. The system's suggestion was the best method in this situation. He instantly bit his finger and extended it towards the Shadow female ancestor's infant body. The female instinctively raised her small head. She must have sensed the blood essence powerful enough to provide her nourishment. She instinctively extended her 2 hands to hold Li Yunmu's finger and began to suck the blood. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, 56 seconds, 2 minutes, 7 minutes, 13 minutes F***CK. Li Yunmu felt his vitality being drained out rapidly. How long would this sucking last? If she continued at her current pace, then even though she was only 10 centimeters tall, he still wouldn't be able to bear with her speed of devouring his blood. System, if she continues sucking like this, won't I die before her sucking completes? Li Yunmu had never expected that a drop of blood essence, which the system mentioned previously, would turn out to be so much. Requesting host to be patient. Because host's blood is of inferior quality, the shadow female ancestor needs to absorb more of it, only then will the contract be produced. Good Lord! Li Yunmu began to weep. He was almost at the point where he couldn't afford any more blood loss. Suddenly, after half an hour, the female finally had her fill. She crawled onto Li Yunmu's shoulder and sat down there, continuing to look at him with her head tilted sideways. Completed? Is the contract formed? Li Yunmu asked, with slight surprise in his voice. Yes, the contract has been established successfully. From today onwards, she has become one of host's shadows, the system replied in a calm and composed voice. But why didn't I see any signs of the contract being completed? Moreover, her body is still small, in what way does she resemble my shadow in the slightest? Li Yunmu couldn't stand the shadow female ancestor watching him attentively with her tilted head. What kind of demon was this? Facing her, Li Yunmu felt quite uncomfortable. Why do I feel as if I've suddenly become a dad? The most important thing was that although the shadow female ancestor was extremely small, her height reaching only 10 centimeters, her body was quite mature. She had everything that a mature human woman would possess. That's why Li Yunmu felt quite uncomfortable when looking at her naked body. He fished out some cloth from his storage bag and tore it to make a piece small enough to cover the shadow's exposed body. However, the next instant, the curious shadow female ancestor pulled it off herself. She apparently wasn't fond of wearing any clothes and instead started to play with the little cloth excitedly. Host doesn't need to worry, sacred shadow ancestor walks in the void. Apart from you, no other people will be able to see her, unless she personally wants to appear in front of them. What the F***? Even the likes of battle sages can't discover her. Yes, unless she enters their heavenly world. The system said with complete certainty. At this moment, Li Yunmu finally recalled something. He had spent a lot of his blood essence and 250 tower badges only to nurture this little creature. Then what kind of abilities did this infant shadow female ancestor possess? Chapter 120, Great Confidence. Infant shadow female ancestor, what kind of abilities did she have? Li Yunmu didn't need to wait for long. The system's next explanation regarding her extraordinary abilities allowed him to quickly understand why the old man had assessed this little shadow female ancestor's worth to be greater than that of the 7th dimension's underworld raven H.A.C.K. Actually, the shadow female ancestor didn't have many abilities, only 2. The first one was mentioned by the system just now, shadow. She could walk between the cracks of all dimensional spaces, without anyone ever seeing her unless she willed them to. Even a battle sage couldn't discover her existence. This was an extraordinary ability, extremely extraordinary. Although it didn't directly affect her combat strength, but what kind of entities were battle sages? They were the supreme existences under the heavens. It was said that no person could rival a battle sage, and this wasn't some exaggeration. But even these supreme existences, whose battle prowess surmounted the heavens, couldn't see through this shadow ability. Then what was the shadow female ancestor's second ability? It was replication. Yes, Li Yunmu hadn't heard wrong. She could really replicate others' cultivation bases. However, there was a restriction on this ability due to shadow female ancestor's infant body. Right now, she could only duplicate the cultivation of any human of the ordinary sage level and below it. It has to be said that after Li Yunmu discovered this second ability of the shadow female ancestor, he was extremely scared. This little thing could do such a thing? She could really accomplish what the system had informed him right now, duplicate the cultivation base of any human under or equal to ordinary sage level. Scary. At this moment, Li Yunmu finally realized why the system's assessment had been so high. Although, the shadow female didn't have many abilities, being an infant, but the few she had were already frightening. No flux cultivation battle skill could compare to them. These two abilities, not only had Li Yunmu never seen them personally, he hadn't even heard of them. The inner vitality of female ancestor of the 7th dimension's shadow clan neared that of deities. It was extremely terrifying. System, you mean that she can completely replicate the power of an ordinary sage's cultivation base and transform it into her own? Li Yunmu asked, with his heart throbbing wildly. When he looked at the small female, which was sitting on his shoulder and playing with a piece of cloth with curiosity, he could only feel great terror. Who would have thought that this female who looked like a little baby would turn out to be so frightening? This isn't the complete explanation, what you are thinking is wrong. Although shadow female ancestor can replicate the cultivation of an ordinary sage, if she wants to use this sort of power which surpasses her infant body's capability, then she could only pour the excess power into you, the system aptly replied. After the many explanations, Li Yunmu finally understood what kind of an ability this replication was. According to the system's explanation, shadow female ancestor's ability to replicate a cultivation base worked in a simple manner. She would first locate her target and silently merge with their shadow, following which she would quietly replicate their cultivation base. At this moment, because she had transformed into Li Yunmu's shadow after absorbing his blood, the cultivation base she possessed was that of Li Yunmu. Speaking frankly, right now she only had the strength of an ordinary crystal fluxer, but what if she replicated the cultivation base of a sage, then how would she use that terrifying power? The answer was by receiving a lot of energy. In other words, she would require Li Yunmu to pour in a sufficient amount of space elements to allow her to surpass her body's limitations and display the power of the cultivation base she had replicated. After comprehending this, Li Yunmu couldn't help but feel a little despair. Yet he also secretly breathed a sigh of relief. At least, this ability wasn't as terrifying as he had thought previously. At the same time, it was a frightening news for humanity. If these higher dimensional life forms could really replicate the power of battle sages and use it whenever they wanted, then humans were just like toys in front of them. Even so, Li Yunmu was extremely excited. It didn't matter that he would have to pour in space elements, since the most important thing was that this shadow female ancestor could replicate the cultivation base of a sage. In other words, as long as he possessed enough space elements to allow her to show her full power, then wouldn't he have a sage-level existence by his side? When Li Yunmu thought about this, his sense of security was boosted greatly. Until now, he had lacked a formidable power which could act as his backer, somebody or something whose name would protect him. But now, based on the system's words, this little shadow female ancestor could surprisingly accomplish it. Li Yunmu was excited enough that he wanted to shout loudly. If currently he didn't have to continue advancing in the Tower of Glory, his first priority would have been to return to Earth to find a formidable person who could act as a target. Then he would have commanded the shadow female ancestor to replicate his cultivation base. Until this goal had been achieved, all other matters would have had to wait. Good, very good, you really aren't a demon but a precious treasure on which I spent more than 200 tower badges. Li Yunmu couldn't control himself and, picking up the little shadow female ancestor, fiercely kissed her. Naturally, he didn't have any malicious intentions, he was just too excited. Even if he had any, given her small, infant-sized body, all of those thoughts would have been useless. However, being kissed so suddenly by Li Yunmu, the little shadow female ancestor, whose little face was left covered in saliva, seemed pretty uncomfortable. Her cute and confused face clearly illustrated that she didn't understand what Li Yunmu was trying to do. The little shadow female ancestor was distracted for a moment more, then she climbed up Li Yunmu's big hands. With her two small ones she took hold of his fingertip, as if thinking of sucking blood again. Oh my! Li Yunmu was frightened by her actions. He hurriedly stopped her, putting her on his shoulder again. F***CK. Even after sucking his body dry just a moment ago, she was still thinking of devouring more. Little treasure, don't move. Your name will be Li Ying from now on. Once the shadow female ancestor No, she was called Li Ying now heard Li Yunmu's words, she opened her mouth without understanding anything, as if trying to speak the name Li Ying. However, she was a Shadow clan's being in the end, and she couldn't speak human words. After nourishing Li Ying, this treasure, successfully, Li Yunmu felt that he was filled with unprecedented self-confidence. F***CK yet, as long as she replicated the cultivation base of a sage, whom would he need to fear in the future? Soon, Li Yunmu walked out of his heavenly world and went to the halo. The 11th level. Here, Li Yunmu saw the first major change in the dimensional monsters. They were no longer hell rats but rather 9 harpies. Damn, second layer dimensional beasts appeared on 11th level. Li Yunmu cried out in surprise. Every 5 levels there was minor boss, and every 10 levels there was a major boss. But this Tower of Glory's increase in difficulty was certainly frightening. Heavens only knew how Mantian and Haiyu had reached 20th level just by relying on their ordinary crystal fluxor cultivation. It must be known that this 11th level had 9 second-layer black crystal dimensional beasts, which surpassed Li Yunmu's cultivation by a full layer. Furthermore, there were 9 of them, and this was really terrifying. However, this level of difficulty wasn't a problem, it wasn't anything Li Yunmu couldn't deal with. But when had that not been the case? And Mantian and Haiyu had also accomplished this, so why shouldn't he be able to do so? There was no point to waste energy here, for just the 51 underworld ravens, who had already broken through silver crystal layer, were sufficient to clear the road for Li Yunmu. Go, kill them all for me. After obtaining sufficient tower badges and successfully nurturing the shadow female ancestor, his main priority had been accomplished. All the tower badges he earned from on would be pure profit. And since the Flux ancestor had created such a huge treasure house, then if Li Yunmu didn't make enormous profit from entering it, he would be disappointed in himself.